Into number 10, selenophobia. It's a fear of the moon. So, seleno is the Greek word for moon, and this is also known as lunophobia from the Latin word for moon, luna. It can also be a fear of the darkness on a moonless night. So, the mythological reasons that someone might develop this fear includes that people may commit more crimes during a full moon, as the myth goes, or maybe the moon is inhabited by evil creatures. Or, as we all know, the myth that the moon can transform people into werewolves. That's very common. Basically, people with selenophobia get a range of symptoms from muscle tensions, chills, breathlessness, dizziness, sweating, feeling trapped, and the inability to articulate words or sentences, similar to what's happening to me in this video. From the symptoms alone, it sounds like this causes quite a bit of anxiety, and to combat this, most of the people with these extreme fears just shutter their windows and avoid going out at night. Also, a common solution is exposure therapy, just, getting a little bit of moon at the time, just a tiny bit. Maybe looking at pictures online, getting the vibe. It's nice. Moving on to number 9, nomophobia. This is the fear of string. So, obviously, beginning of this phobia is the Greek word for string, lino, and while it sounds humorous at first to be afraid of, strings, laces on shoes, this one actually causes pretty serious symptoms, including shortness of breath, tremors, nausea, fainting, loss of control, sweating, an increased heart rate, and an urge to flee. Basically, people who develop a fear of string may have it because they may have been tied up in the past, or maybe they've seen movies and TV shows enough of people being restrained and tied up, and then they come to see being tied up as being forced to do something in a very negative way. So the therapy for it includes educating people about their fears and, helping them through string and laces. Just so you know. I'm wearing boots, so I don't have to look at laces, so we're fine. Moving on to number 8, allophobia, fear of flutes. So this person better watch out for Lizzo's flute solos is all I can say. Allophobia can be a fear of looking at a flute, the sound of a flute, or even the clicking of the flute's buttons when it's played. Basically, symptoms include feeling of panic, terror, dread, rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, trembling, and anxiety. Sometimes perfectionism may get into the way of playing a flute. In one case, a girl edged into allophobia after a comment was made that you have to be very careful because flutes are just so fragile. But good news is she was helped by her flute teacher to get over her fear and now makes lovely music. So face your fears. You'll make music. Moving on to number 7. This is a fun one. Arachnophobia. Yeah, try saying that 5 times fast. So this phobia is the fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your mouth. Yeah, as in when it gets stuck up there and you are left trying to get it off there and making the weird faces of like that. That's a fear. It's a valid fear, honestly. Like with other phobias, the symptoms of this one that I will not try to pronounce again involve panic, dread, terror, anxiety, rapid heartbeat, and shortness of breath. When the peanut butter is wedged on the roof of your mouth, obviously, it is annoying, but for these people, it's just another level. Alternatively, give peanut butter to a dog and live vicariously through them to feel joy. They just love it. Dogs. Yeah. Moving on to number 6, genophobia, fear of knees. Yeah, so if I say something is the bee's knees, does that make you scream? Maybe the idea of knees makes you uncomfortable. But for these people, just again, next level. People with genophobia have either a fear of their own knees, someone else's knees, or the act of kneeling. And while yes, sometimes knees look weird or even like a face, this is an oddly specific phobia. It would make it hard to play a bunch of group sports like soccer or rugby or ultimate frisbee. Even living in warmer weather would be tough because you'd be like, no, not my knees, not yours knees. Oh, I can't go, nope, not going outside. People with this phobia have been known to reduce their fear with cognitive behavioral therapy and hypnotherapy. Just knees. That's just that. On to number 5, venistrophobia, a fear of beautiful women. If you have this one, I don't know how you're watching this video. No, I'm just kidding. Venistrophobia is when seeing a beautiful woman or speaking to one can cause a full-on panic attack. The name comes from Venus, which is the Greek goddess that represents women. Now, people may develop this phobia if they associate a beautiful woman or women with a negative experience. A girl rejects someone, it leads to fear of another rejection, and that anxiety compounds, and that person, and boom, all beautiful women are now scary. They just think about that one scary situation. The physical symptoms are trembling, shortness of breath, sweaty hands, nausea, headaches, and in some cases, gasping for breath, choking, crying, and screaming. Plus, emotionally, a person may have a loss of reality, feeling like running away, embarrassment, or feeling like you're gonna pass out. Moving on to number 4, euphobia, which is the fear of good news. So this comes from the spelling EU or U, which means good. And it's the same stem as in euphoria. And you're probably thinking, who fears good news? It's good, right? So the reason someone may develop euphobia is if they get really, really disappointed by good news that didn't actually happen. An example is someone who has the winning lottery numbers, but it's for the wrong date. Then they are people that want the truth and equate the truth with chaos. Like something being good may become something that is too good to be true. These people just thrive in a chaotic environment. So the common treatments for euphobia is just behavioral psychotherapy, where they are then conditioned to feel happy when they hear good news because it's good. I know life is chaos, but like it's fine. We'll just... Number 3, we have thanatophobia, fear of bald people. It is also related to the fear of becoming bald, arachnophobia. The pelota in ablutophobia is the Spanish word for bald people and or baldness. And also, I think this phobia exists just because bald people, they're just too powerful, you know? You know how you can feel the wind on your body but not your head because you have hair? They feel the wind. I don't know where I'm going with this, but they're powerful, okay? In reality, these people who suffer from high amounts of anxiety when they see bald people, they exist. And because they are wanting to avoid the symptoms that are triggered when they see a bald person, they end up taking steps to avoid it. And one step that they take might be refusing to associate with bald people. So if you know someone like this, maybe don't shave your head. Unless you get an argument and want about a month of space, do it. I say, but then actually stay away from them because you don't want to trigger their fear. Moving on to number 2, papaphobia. And no, this is not a fear of your papa, this is the fear of the Pope. Papa means Pope in Latin, and this phobia is also related to hierophobia, which is the fear of holy people or sacred things, plus other holy related phobias. So the symptoms for this one typically include extreme anxiety, dread, and anything associated with panic such as shortness of breath, rapid breathing, irregular heartbeat, sweating, excessive sweating, nausea, dry mouth, more nausea, inability to articulate words or sentences, like me, dry mouth, and shaking. Now, there aren't recorded measures to help this phobia, but I imagine the people most likely don't go to Catholic Church if they don't like the Pope to that degree. Plus, if the Pope is bald, then palatophobic people with papaphobia are just getting a double whammy at that point, you know? Let's move on to number 1, my favorite, the weirdest of the weird, thanatophobia, fear a duck is watching you. Yeah, the word thanatophobia comes from the Greek word antidae, which means duck, geese, or other waterfowls, and phobos is obviously Greek for dread and fear. So this could also relate to the fear of geese, and after that one Goose game that came out, I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few people found geese threatening, honestly. And also, a side note, Canadian geese are terrifying. Anyways, the fear of ducks phobia can be just really bad, like debilitating. The anxiety condition can get to the point where no matter what someone is doing or where they may be in the world, they just feel it. They feel a duck or goose is nearby, just there. A person with this phobia could feel that somewhere in the world, a duck or goose is just watching them, not attacking them or touching them, just out there, watching them, keeping tabs. This fear could have been spurred by a traumatizing event or incident with ducks or geese, but my mom says don't worry, ducks are never watching you, they're always walking away. So that's pro tips from Abby's mom. I would also say Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb may have the fear of Perry the Platypus watching him, but at the same time they kind of have a weird frenemy relationship, so I can't say for sure. I'm not a doctor.
Starting us off with number 10 is optophobia. Now optophobia is actually the extreme fear of opening one's eyes. It can be caused by some sort of traumatic event that occurred previously, like they saw something so horrific it just scarred them for life, or it could be due to some internal factors like genetics. A lot of phobic people are terrified to open their eyes because they're convinced they'll see the one thing they fear the most, whatever that may be. Someone with a phobia on Reddit said it's like when you cover your eyes during a scary movie because you're scared of what's coming next, except it's just that perpetual feeling all the time. Most phobic people just keep their eyes shut and will maybe open them for a brief second once in a while. I can't even imagine what someone with that would go through. They feel extremely anxious when thinking about opening their eyes. They feel like they have to do everything possible to avoid opening them, and sometimes their anxiety over it can be so bad they won't even be able to function. Like imagine never wanting to see what's in front of you or just being so afraid to do so. I feel like that would be very debilitating. Coming in at number 9 is oikophobia. Now oikophobia is the fear of home surroundings or a home, even the contents of a house or even household appliances. Now this may not seem like such a bad one, but imagine how distressing that must be for someone who is phobic. Not even being able to be in a home, their own home, every day or every night after work. It completely interferes with their daily lives. A lot of phobic people have no idea how they developed the fear. Others remember events like burning their hand on a kitchen stove as a kid, so now they must avoid it at all costs. Some kids have seen horrible accidents or deaths taking place in a home, and that could also lead to a permanent excessive fear of being inside a house. Phobic people, if in a house, start feeling like they're being smothered and they get this very tight feeling in their chest. Some feel like they're choking or about to vomit or die or just lose control. At number 8 we have catoptrophobia. This is the extreme fear of mirrors or seeing your own reflection in them. It's a highly personalized phobia, and some are afraid of themselves reflected words, or the mirrors linked to the supernatural. Which I mean is fair enough, mirrors have always been linked to religious rituals and superstitions for a long ass time. According to ancient belief, a mirror reflects a person's soul. Superstition wise, we've all heard that someone will get 7 years of bad luck if they break a mirror. Some phobic people think they'll be pulled into the mirror by some preternatural force. Some people are just scared of reflected material in general, whereas others are terrified of how mirrors distort the reflected item, making it look weirdly unnatural. And I get it. Sometimes I feel like you always just see things in a mirror that aren't really there and you're like, oh, what was that? Filling our number 7 slot is phobophobia. This one's a bit of an oxymoron because it's the phobia of fear itself, the fear of being scared of some situation or object. Phobic people get overwhelmed with extreme anxiety when the thought of letting themselves become afraid of an object or situation enters their brain. It's extremely self-limiting and self-replicating in the sense that if they already have this phobia, they might develop more and then continue fearing the thought of developing more. Phobophobia is more likely amongst people with existing anxiety disorders, and the phobia itself originates from a panic disorder. This one is completely internally triggered as opposed to being triggered by an external factor like a traumatic event. Physical symptoms of the phobia include dry mouth, nausea, wanting to escape, uncontrollable shaking and sweating, hysterical behavior, and so forth. Internal symptoms include the phobic person having visions of death or dying and feeling like they are genuinely having a heart attack. Now at number 6 is thanatophobia. This is the persistent abnormal fear of hair, whether that's the person's own hair, seeing loose hairs on furniture or clothes, or even animal hair. Unlike the general population who try to invest but never properly invest in great hair care products, phobic people want absolutely nothing to do with hair. They avoid places like salons and barbershops like the plague and will literally have a full-blown panic attack at the sight of hair anywhere. The fear comes from believing the hair is going to harm them, and most of them know they're being very irrational, but it's also well out of their control, as are most phobias. I feel like if the person had control of the phobia, they wouldn't have the phobia, just saying. It's believed people with this phobia really believe hair is dirty or has a lot of germs, and so if you come in contact with it, it could get you fatally ill. Other external trigger points could be a traumatic event that involved a very hairy person, or internal trigger points like already having OCD and feeling extremely disgusted at hair being anywhere around you. Symptoms include trembling at the sight of hair, feeling nauseous, thinking about hair all the time, so much so that you're detached from reality, and cleaning obsessively so there's no hair anywhere. I feel like maybe, and I can't speak on this ignorantly, but I feel like, you know when you're in the shower and you have a hair on you and it just feels disgusting? I feel like that's how the person must feel, but all the time. Coming in at number 5 is arachnophobia. Now this is the fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of one's mouth. So again, very specific, but it's also not the phobia of peanut butter itself. Scientists believe this phobia is more rooted in the fear of choking or sticky textures, but can very well be an isolated thing as well. Now the phobia varies in intensity like any other phobia. Some people can eat peanut butter as a dip with something else, others can't eat it at all, and some can't even eat anything that contains peanut butter like ice cream. It can be traced to someone already having a peanut allergy and then wanting to avoid peanut butter from there, but that's not always the case. Maybe the phobic person nearly choked on it as a kid, because contrary to popular belief, choking on peanut butter is very damn common. I did not know that. At number 4 is somnophobia. Now I'm sure you can guess this one from the name. It's the irrational fear of sleeping or falling asleep, which is actually very dangerous since sleeping is one of the bare necessities of life. Researchers believe the fear stems from the fear of the unknown. The phobic person is terrified of what they may see or what may happen if they fall asleep, since they will no longer be in control. Some are afraid of nightmares, whilst others are terrified they won't be able to hear their loved ones call out to them while they're asleep. Sleepwalking is also one of the causes of this phobia because people tend to do things they aren't conscious of in this state. Death is also known as a big sleep, so phobic people feel very terrified that during sleep that they just could die any minute. Others sleep talk and feel vulnerable because they don't know what they're saying. Sleep paralysis is also a cause, and people who are anxious and already find it hard falling asleep will get more anxiety after a nightmare and then become sleep panicky, and then the cycle will just continue. The symptoms are pretty obvious. They include inability to concentrate, reduced memory, loss of control, mood swings, fatigue and drowsiness, and so forth. Filling our number 3 slot is ablutophobia. Now this is the overwhelming uncommon fear of cleaning, bathing or washing. The causes of this phobia aren't completely understood yet. Like the others, this phobic person may have had a traumatic experience involving washing themselves. If one of their parents had it, then they are also most likely to have it as well, and of course changes in their brain functioning can cause it as well. Symptoms include avoidance of bathing and washing, panic attacks, intense anxiety just thinking about it, difficulty breathing, knowing you're being irrational and not being able to stop it as well. This one really would affect the phobic person, since in our world, showering and being clean is something people really value in this society, so phobic people will feel the social ramifications of it very quickly as people distance themselves for smell-related reasons, and that could lead to the person isolating themselves altogether. Now at number 2 is allodoxophobia. This is the irrational fear of hearing other people's opinions. I know, right? I feel like everyone on the internet has this. I'm kidding, I don't want to downplay a phobia. Things are very serious, but I feel like a lot of thoughts are coming to people's minds right now, I'm just saying. Either way, phobic people live in constant anxiety and fear of hearing others' opinions about themselves, and because of that they put restrictions on themselves and isolate themselves, or they just never speak up in situations. Now, this phobia can strike at any age, but many were consistently criticized as children, and that's what it comes from. Abused children are more likely to develop this phobia, as are more passive and sensitive people. Ones who hate hearing criticism because that affects the amygdala, a part of your brain, so in response to that, in order to protect you, it just makes you avoid hearing opinions altogether. The media can also trigger it as well, so I mean, let's think about that for a second, right? Symptoms include increased heart rate, getting angry when any opinion is expressed, whether that's good or bad, insecurity and depression. And finally, at number 1 is phagophobia, and this is the extreme fear of swallowing. The phobic person will continually complain about any situation to do with swallowing, despite no real reason for any discomfort. Now just to clarify, this is not the same as the fear of choking, because swallowing obviously comes before that. This one is also super dangerous because it can very well lead to a fear of eating, and therefore critical weight loss and malnutrition. In a lot of the cases with this phobia, the person will only eat soft or liquid foods, if any at all. Just imagine you felt a lump in your throat every time you tried to swallow anything, and that you had this constant fear that if you swallow this one thing, you could easily die. Now this is an excerpt shared by a real person with phagophobia. He shared, "I'm 43 and started having panic attacks about a year ago. I've been having panic attacks daily for nearly 2 months now, and I'm having great difficulty swallowing. At first I could swallow food following each mouthful with water, but it has got worse. I would chew my food as small as I could and end up having to spit it out because no matter how much I told myself to swallow, I just couldn't do it. Now I am just taking liquids. Please help. I can't go on like this. I want to feel normal again." See, like, these phobias are very debilitating. How funny some of them may sound or be, they are really affecting a lot of people.
Number 10, we have trypophobia, which is the fear of tiny holes. This actually grosses me out. I didn't realize I was afraid of this until I started researching it, and then I was like, ugh, no to tiny holes. People with trypophobia will be afraid of tiny little holes in symmetrical patterns. For example, if you kneeled on a bag of peas, this would leave hole impressions in your skin, which would freak out these poor hole fearers. Now, lots of people have absolutely delighted in photoshopping grotesque things to skin to freak out these poor hole fearers, and for me it's just a bit disgusting. In at number 9 we have trypanophobia, aka the fear of needles. Many people absolutely hate needles. The thought of one, the sight of one will send them into like a shivering wreck of a fear of a person, and I kind of get it, like giving blood or having a shot or a jab isn't that much fun. Now, around 20% of people are reported to have a slight fear of needles. I guess it's because people are afraid that they're going to get hurt. It's never a good connotation, but really I think if you close your eyes it's not that bad, except actually that jab you had to have in high school, that BCG thing, that really hurt. In at number 8 we have agoraphobia, the fear of crowds or enclosed public spaces. Now, this is a very common phobia and can genuinely hinder people's quality of life. Some people are too afraid to go outdoors because they think that they'll find themselves in a crowded place or an enclosed public space that they stay inside. This can lead to depression and all kinds of social problems. As well as a phobia, agoraphobia is mostly an anxiety disorder, and it can appear in people between their 20s and 30s. The only way to overcome this is cognitive therapy, and if any of you guys are watching and have this, I recommend getting some help because going outside is glorious. In at number 7 we have aerophobia, aka the fear of flying. I kind of understand this, it's a bit unnatural, isn't it? Like, ooh, ah. Now the fear of flying can be closely related to claustrophobia and the fear of heights. People don't like being in such an enclosed space, like many planes are, unless you fly first class, which I would love to do, but not always have the money. Also, people who are afraid of heights don't like looking out the window of the plane because they're like, oh my god, I am so high. But most people who suffer from aerophobia are afraid of the plane crashing and afraid of not being in control. I, for one, really don't love flying because I find it a bit stressful for those reasons. I don't want to die in a plane crash, I don't like not being in control, but as a person who lives in North America and my family live in England, also I want to explore the world, it's kind of a must for me. So just kind of have to get over it. In at number 6 we have nyctophobia, aka the fear of the dark. Now nyctophobia is most common in children, but adults absolutely definitely suffer too. Now nyctophobia is triggered by the brain's perception of the unknown, trying to make sense out of shapes in the dark, and the fear of what could happen when in a dark environment. I feel the best way to tackle this is to have like a little lamp beside your bed, and when you think something's gonna jump out and get you, just switch the light on and it'll go away. In at number 5 we have arachnophobia, and that is the fear of snakes. Snakes on a plane. Ah!
I have had it with these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane.
According to statistics, around 30% of people are afraid of snakes. Now, this phobia also applies to people who just don't like to think about snakes or look at snakes, as well as those who are afraid of them biting them because of the deadly venom. If you suffer from this fear, you're not alone because so did Indiana Jones, and Harrison Ford's cool, right? Getting gruesome at number 4, we have hemophobia, aka the fear of blood. Now the fear of blood is closely related to the fear of needles. It makes some people feel very queasy, they don't like to see blood, if they do they might be sick, they might faint, and this is one of the more physical reactions to a phobia. It's a bit of a strange phobia because obviously all humans and all living things are absolutely pumped with blood, but I guess when you see it, it means something's gone slightly awry, thus leading to the phobia. Seeing blood has lots of connotations with injury and death, so it's kind of understandable. In at number 3, an absolute classic, we have arachnophobia, the fear of spiders. Now I think I have mild arachnophobia. I really don't like spiders. They just have too many legs and they kind of crawl everywhere in an unpredictable speed, and they have so many eyes. Why does something need so many eyes? I don't know. Arachnophobia mainly affects women. Around 4 times more women are afraid of spiders than men, so around 48% of women will suffer from arachnophobia and 12% of men. Spiders are obviously a really important part of our ecosystem, so I guess we just have to grin and bear them. Also, if you don't like spiders, a little trick for you: if you leave a conker in the corner of a room, they generally stay away, they don't like them. Do you guys have conkers in the US? We definitely have them in the UK. I'll send you a pic. In at number 2 we have acrophobia, aka the fear of heights. According to research, nearly 10% of all people are afraid of heights, so this is a pretty serious phobia. Personally, I'm fine with heights, although the other day I did go up the CN Tower, which is a landmark in Toronto. It's very, very high up, it's one of the tallest buildings in the world, and I love being able to see across the city. However, there's a section where you can walk on a glass floor and look down, and that did kind of give me the heebie-jeebies. Ugh. I guess it's kind of unnatural for humans, we're not really supposed to go up so high, we're more land dwellers. So guys, we have reached that point in our most amazing top 10 list of the most common phobias and the things we have learnt and seen. So far we've had the fear of tiny holes, the fear of blood and needles, the fear of crowds, the fear of flying, the fear of heights, and the fear of the dark, plus phobias to snakes and spiders. But what is at number 1? So in at number 1 we have claustrophobia, aka the fear of being trapped in a small space. Now the fear of being trapped or enclosed or buried alive is one of the most common fears in all human beings. We just don't like it, it's unnatural, just like, give me some space. Now this phobia can emerge in lifts or elevators, crowded spaces, rooms without windows, and sometimes even in tight clothing. I've had that feeling before when I've worn like a really tight roll neck and I've just been like, oh, get it off me, get it off me. Now this fear comes from a combination of the fear of being trapped and the fear of being suffocated, both of which are completely understandable. I absolutely hate feeling claustrophobic. I just need to get out. I'm not sure there's anything we can do about this. This is just a natural human instinct. So guys, that was our list of the top 10 most common phobias. However, I would like to make an honourable mention to a phobia that isn't quite common enough to make the list. It's thanatophobia, the fear that somewhere a duck is watching you. Yes, the duck is out there and it has its eyes on you.